We all have the same condition. It's called life. For me, it means being a gay man and an addict in recovery, and sometimes a drag queen, and dealing with aging and sex, and being a friend, and finding happiness, and doing it all while living with HIV for the last 25 years. This much I've learned. Life definitely has side effects. I'm Mark S. King, and this is my fabulous disease. You know, I'm here at the Gay Men's Health Summit in Fort Lauderdale, and something that's come up here that came up in Vienna at the World AIDS Conference is criminalization. This has become an important topic, and I hope you'll listen closely to this, because it's about prevention of HIV, and it's about how people are being treated with HIV in ways that has really perverted, I think, the intention of the law. To discuss this today, we have Sean Strub, who many of you know is the founder of POZ Magazine, and who is now involved in a project helping better define laws for HIV transmission rather than simply the failure to disclose. So let's check in with Sean and see how that's going. Thanks for watching.
Some change.
In this workshop, you said 2/3 of the gay men that were interviewed initially were in favor of criminalization of HIV until they understood more. What do you say to them to help them understand what changes their mind?
There's no more severe manifestation or extreme manifestation of stigma than when it is in the law. And stigma, as we know, is the obstacle for people getting tested, for getting into care, and increasingly here is take the test and risk arrest. Because once people are tested, their name goes on a list, and then they are subject to prosecution if somebody accuses them of failing to disclose. The laws tend to be, the prosecutions tend to be he said, or he said, she said, because if someone is accused of not disclosing, it's very difficult to prove that they did disclose. But the criminalization statutes are also a problem because they undermine the central message of HIV prevention, which is that we have to be responsible for our own health. We have to be responsible for the risks that we choose to take. And these laws imply a disproportionate responsibility, and they end up valuing an illusion of safety for people who are negative or don't know their status over the privacy rights of people who are positive.
You made a very important distinction in the workshop, and that is these are cases of non-disclosure. These are not cases of transmission. In other words, these people could have been having safe sex. They could have been using condoms.
In some cases, they were using condoms. In the Iowa case where the person was sentenced to 25 years, he used a condom and he was undetectable. So, and a quarter of the prosecutions in the U.S. are for behaviors like spitting that pose no risk of transmission. There's a guy in Texas serving 35 years right now for spitting at a cop. The prosecutions are most often about whether or not the person who's positive is able to prove that they disclosed. It's not about how much risk there was. Very rarely is there HIV transmission involved in these cases, in these prosecutions. The intent to harm, I believe, should be prosecuted. I think most people believe that it should be prosecuted.
And that's an important distinction. I want to make sure
Right.
we outline that. You do believe that there are cases in which people should be prosecuted.
Sure, absolutely. There are cases where there is an intent to harm someone, where somebody is intentionally trying to transmit. They're not very many. They're very, 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 very few. They tend to be the ones on the talk shows and the people, and they're very difficult cases. One of the problems is, what do we do with people who demonstrate exceptionally irresponsible sexual behaviors repeatedly, and finding the appropriate response for that is part of the challenge.
You mentioned during the workshop the Denver principles,
Right.
and something that I've also written about, and about your bringing it up again and kind of re-entering it into reminding us all about this amazing set of principles that were done 25 years ago or more, right?
27, 1983.
And one of those principles is just the right to a sexually satisfying existence, and the fact that these laws seem to suggest that we don't have that right, even when we disclose properly.
Well, the Denver Principles was a truly historic document that I think in time are getting greater recognition for what they meant. It was the first time in the history of humanity that people who shared a disease organized and asserted their right to be involved in the decision making that so affected their lives. In the Denver Principles, it notes the ethical obligation of people with HIV to disclose to sexual partners things that might put another person at risk. So, I really believe in the obligation to disclose. But not everyone is able to disclose in every circumstance equally. For some people, it puts them at risk of physical abuse. We all know how traumatic it is to absorb dealing with an HIV diagnosis. And it also is a question of how much risk is present. Is disclosure before kissing someone necessary? Is disclosure before oral sex necessary?
Because my rules may be different than yours.
Right.
And I may feel as if my rules are based on being informed, whereas your rules may be based on being afraid.
Right, right. And that's why, ultimately the message is we have to support people in taking control and responsibility for their own sexual health.
Finally, Sean, it's funny because I was so excited to be here at the workshop and get to meet you because I've never met you in person. And it's funny, I wonder how often you walk around and show up at these things. And as happened at the workshop today, people said, I'm here because I just want to meet Sean Strub because the magazine you founded affected my life, or the work you've done in advocacy. Does that keep you going? Is that great to hear, to get to show up and just hear all of this support?
There were so many people who made POZ happen, and a lot of them are gone. But yes, it does. It means a lot to me when people tell me. One person today was talking about when we were publishing my lab work every month and how useful that was to him. He was telling me this, and I just got tears in my eyes, because it really brings me a lot of joy to, see how the magazine has helped people.
Well, I'm glad you're still stirring it up.
Thank you.
I'm very grateful for that. So thank you for your work on this issue.
Thank you. Great to meet you too.
You too.
Okay.